Great. Well, thank you for sharing the video, Ashley. I think the video is just a great introduction, but really reading the book and filling in some of those details was awesome.
Yeah.
So I've got some questions, and I think that we can get started. The book is called Crossing the Line. Can you tell me a little bit about where that title comes from?
Yeah, the title "Crossing the Line" has a double meaning. It's a reference to polo. In short, crossing the line is a foul in polo. Every time the ball is hit, there's an invisible line created, and each player has to respect that line. First for the horse's safety, and then the player's safety. The best analogy is you think about, you know, um, driving down a four-lane highway. You're going to signal the person behind you that you're going to switch lanes. Same in polo when you're running, at 35 miles per hour, you just can't cross in front of the other player because that typically causes some sort of accident. It can be very dangerous. And then the other reference is, my life, the two lives that I basically grew up in, a very poor life in West Philadelphia, where there were tons of poverty and crime and struggle there, and then me crossing over into this world of wealth and royalty and opportunity. So I thought the title was I thought it described my life and me very well. So that's kind of how I came up with the title
It's a
"Crossing the
perfect
Line."
analogy between what you were doing on the field and the life outside.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So for someone like me who's never seen a polo game and doesn't really know what that looks like, how does polo work? What's a polo game look like?
Yeah, most polo players compare it to, I guess, hockey on horseback. It's a contact sport, very fast. Um, Grass polo, the field is the size of 9 football fields, so you can place 9 football fields on a polo field. So
Wow, I didn't
the
realize it was
area
that
is that
big.
large.
Yeah.
There are 4 and 4. There are 6 periods that are called chukkers. Each period lasts about 7 minutes long. The object of the game is to score as many goals as possible, so the team with the most goals at the end wins. There are two umpires on the field, referees, and at a very high level game, you would see close to maybe 6 to 10 horses per player. So it could be 46 horses or 48 horses for one team.
So I didn't realize you're rotating those through
You're
constantly
you're
throughout the.
yeah, you're rotating the horses constantly throughout the
Wow.
game, and you'll also see players switch horses mid chukker or mid period, as the game is happening. So as if you would watch a NASCAR or race car come into pit stop, change the tires, refuel, and off you go. Similar horses, the other players who are running to the sideline, they actually don't even touch the ground. They jump from one horse to the next
So
horse.
does play halt, or do
Yeah.
they do that mid?
Sometimes mid game, but you try to do it during a dead ball. But
It's
sometimes
like a hockey shift change.
it's like exactly like a hockey shift change. But sometimes there's no dead ball opportunity, or the play is continuing. So in your horse, may tire out before the next whistle, so you have to do it mid shift.
So how do you feel that? How do you know that it's time?
Oh, I mean, you see the horse, it's slowing down. You're not able to, make the next play is what they call it, meaning keeping up with the next horse. You can totally see how hard your horse is breathing. The horse, breathing is extremely loud. I actually saw the other day. I saw the insane picture of what a horse's lung looks like inflated, and it's the folks on can't or on the screen can't see it, but clearly the size of that round table right there, so it's massive. But you could when the horse tires, and so you try to swap out before it gets to the point of pure exhaustion.
So you really have to be in tune with your animal when you're playing this game.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to know, how the horse is feeling. If he or she, comes up lame, he's injured, if it's just having an off day, or it says your horse doesn't want to stop, or it's not responding to your normal commands. They're just like any other athlete, really. They deal with soreness, deal with injuries, just may just be having an off day. And you got to assess when you're out there. And sometimes, majority of the time, actually, not all the time, you don't really have time to figure out mid game. So once that's happened, you got to make a quick decision. Do you go switch horses or not?
Wow, that's awesome. I can't imagine being involved in that and having that level of partnership and that trust in something that
you have to learn how to communicate in such a different way.
Yeah, and that's one of the unique things about polo. I think majority of equestrian sports, really, when you have, an animal as a partner, but and players, say that horses are 90% of the game, right? The other 10% are just your ability to hit the ball and stay on top and ride well. But I mean, essentially, the horse is the athlete out there that's leaving whatever it is they have on the field.
Yeah.
And they learn the game. They understand when to turn, when to stop. Yeah, the horses are everything. Without the horses, really, there's no game of polo.
So when you meet a horse, can you immediately tell that it's an athlete, or maybe this isn't the horse to take out and play polo with?
Yeah, absolutely. Even when you start them young, and there's no difference when you watch a young child who has an incredible jump shot at basketball, has a credible eye for the ball, playing baseball or golf. Same thing in polo. The way the horse moves and the way it responds to your commands, and how quickly it picks up the commands that you give it. Their ability to follow the game, to follow the ball. All that stuff matters. You can see that instantly. It probably takes a few rides to tell if you got a good horse or a bad horse.
So what was the difference the first time you rode Angel versus the first time you rode Cholo?
Well, Angel was quite smaller, the pony that I first rode that you're referencing to. And she was a seasoned horse. And I think also she was probably very stubborn too. Most ponies are stubborn. Yeah, she was I guess, yeah, maybe half or a quarter the size of Cholo. I would probably say actually a quarter. My feet, I was a kid at the time, and so my feet was almost touching the ground even as a kid. So that, I felt safe being on the pony there.
Yeah.
And then getting on Cholo, I've fortunately had several years in riding by then. And
a little bit more confident.
Yeah, a little bit more
Yeah.
confident. Definitely a lot more confidence there. When I started riding Cholo, my horse, he he was a young racehorse, so he only knew how to turn left, really, and run as fast as he can run, and that's kind of the only bit of training. So I had to retrain him for polo, and but by then I had the skills and the knowledge to do that, which was incredible.
So Cholo was the first horse that you had a hand in training.
Yeah, I would say it was probably maybe the second or third horse, but
Okay. So it wasn't
probably
completely new to you at that
it
point.
wasn't completely new to me at that point, but I was still as a horse term green
Okay.
at that time.
What made you want to tell your story?
I really, in the beginning, before I even wrote the book, and I had a bunch of friends encourage me about telling the story, and I was just hesitant about writing about it. But then I realized too that our story's been covered for many years on some of the major news outlets across the country, and they only ever shared 10-minute pieces, very high level view of the story, and left out so many details,
Right.
not intentionally, but just because
when you have
you
10
only have 10 minutes, only
Yeah.
so much you can tell. And I really wanted to highlight Leslie's remarkable work. Leslie Hunter, the founder and the executive director of Work to Ride, but also
And I mean, just a very personal, just an important person in your life.
Yeah, important person in my life, but also just the struggle. What was it like for us growing up in West Philly, and the adversity we faced, and
Because I mean, Leslie really was a second mother to you.
She was. I think Leslie, I always call her my second mom. Just her commitment to me and the kids in the organization, I just refer to her as a saint, honestly, too, as well as my second mother. But talking about Leslie, and as well as just the struggle and adversity we went through as kids coming up in the organization, and I was hoping really just inspire some people. I think everyone's always looking for a little hope, and we were just a group of kids from Philadelphia, from West Philly, who just believed that we could do whatever we put our minds to.
Yeah, that family team dream that you talked about in the book.
Yeah, we've always dreamed of having a family team, and we would sit down on the living room floor and talk about what we were going to go on to do and achieve, and we wanted to win championships, and we were fortunate enough to do that.
Awesome.
So you talked about being a kid and sort of having that as your place of escape and finding the barn.
Yeah.
completely by accident, right?
Yeah.
Wrong turn on a bike.
Yeah, my brothers were out, just out on a Sunday afternoon bike ride, and they stumbled upon the stables, and they walked in, and I mean, I'm sure they probably knew they weren't even allowed to go in, or they didn't really care if they were trespassing or not. They just saw horses and they got excited. But they met Leslie, and Leslie at that time it was running, as the program has been going for a couple years, and David and Jabbar, ran home with applications to my mom, for my mom to sign, and my mom signed those applications. And at that time, I think I was still too young to join the program, and I was just begging to go. And then I think maybe a year or a few months later or so, I tagged along, and it was history ever since.
So did you know in that moment that this was something special that was going to be a big part of your life?
I didn't, I think in that moment I was just so excited, right? I was
Yeah.
this excited kid that saw horses, and I was probably like drooling on myself and just having a good time. And what was going on? I just saw horses. I also wanted to do everything that my older brothers were doing.
Right.
But I could definitely be lying if I said I knew that was going to change my life then. But as time went on, I certainly saw the benefits of having something like this around.
Yeah, and I mean, it was so interesting. You're reading this story and you're sort of painting these cityscapes as you can in your head. And it's like you go from, in one moment, you're in Center City, and then the next moment, you're in a barn.
Yeah.
And trying to make that transition. So how far away was the barn from where you
The
lived?
barn was, a bike ride, 15 minutes, car ride, 5 minutes, really, maybe a little bit longer, but right around the corner, basically. We lived there for probably 8 years before we realized this place was just around the corner from us. That just also shows how far we basically never traveled,
Right.
as kids, because we were just stuck in our little 4 or 5 block radius. But yeah, it was so close, and it was just this magical place that was just right around the corner from us.
So I think one of the most sort of relatable moments in reading the book is when, at first, it's you and your older brothers, it's you and B and David, and you're watching the Argentina 1986 team on these VHS tapes, and you're just sort of kids being kids, and you're finding your idols, and they're your role models, and you're learning about this, and you're just completely obsessed over it. And then later, there's a moment where you do the same thing, except now you're the big brother.
Yeah.
And Gerb's in there, and Brandon's in there with you.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how it felt different watching those when you were sort of the one telling what's happening versus when you were just a little boy learning what's going on?
It was, the difference was basically we were now playing polo at a high level, right? Relatively high level. We were obsessing over these Argentinian polo players who were the best in the world, and watching their strategy, and watching, how fast their horses are running, how great their horses are, and their ability to hit the ball at high speeds. And and we were just kids, just you find there's no difference in a kid watching Steph Curry shoot a 3-point shot. Now they go to the gym and they start shooting 3-point shots, right? And we start getting on horses and start running, you start riding, and emulating what they're doing. And we may not even understand what they're doing, but we're just we're riding like they're riding, and just trying to the similar riding posture and all that, those kind of things. But and then me kind of talking to my younger brother Damar and Brandon, it was just really kind of just regurgitating what I saw on the tape, right? Because that was what we knew, and that was practice. And these guys are playing on a high level, so this must be the way to do it, right? And again, not every kid is Steph Curry. Go start shooting 3-point shot. There's more to his technique than him going out there and shooting. And there was also more than us just going and trying to swing as hard as we can and hit the ball. But we started just through experience and through process. We started to understand the game a bit more. The game started to slow down. So through my experience, I was able to articulate that either through just study, film sessions and sitting down and talking about that with Damar, Brandon, and then also just getting on the horses and just trial and error.
Learning on the fly.
Yeah, exactly.
So I found out today, and getting to know you a little bit, that you got to live in Argentina. Did that feel like a dream realized for you? Was that like an accomplishment? Could you say, wow, I remember watching this on TV as a kid, and now I'm
Yeah, I
here.
remember going in Buenos Aires, or at least the in Palermo, this area in the Argentine Open, and the stadium as there was watching those 80, 90 tapes, and that this was the place where the finals were happening, or the tournaments were being played. And I do remember sitting in the bleachers and just kind of reminiscing and thinking about the time we used to like watch these guys on tape running. Now I'm here watching it live in person. I if someone would have asked me, during that time, do you think you ever go to Argentina? I'm probably say I don't know. But the fact that it happened, it's just a blessing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So going back to your childhood a little bit, you grew up in this really rough neighborhood. There wasn't a lot of structure. Um, Talking to you, I learned that you missed a lot of school.
Yeah.
And then you go to military school.
Yeah.
How was that transition?
Oh, it's tough. I mean, I go from, very poor, uh, you know, public school in Philadelphia, basically where there's zero accountability, from staff all the way down to the students. Um, did whatever I want, showed up to school if I wanted to or if I didn't want to. It was essentially a joke. And then I go to a place like Valley Forge where there's this regimented schedule and their structure, and not just structure, not any kind of structure, but a military structure. There are rules, there are people who are enforcing rules. All that. There's the culture shock of it all. Leaving home for the first time, really not living under my mother's roof. All those things really, it was intimidating, scary, and frustrating, and I had this insane mix. Had mixed feelings about, do I want to actually be here, even though I chose to go there. I
Right.
kind of was regretting it at the time. Did I make the right decision? But
Well, I mean, just reading and listening, it was tough.
yeah,
It was
it
hard.
was tough, but fortunately, it honestly, probably was one of the best decisions I ever made. It's definitely as a, eighth grade boy.
Right.
I think not many eighth grade boys decide, send me to military school. But I went there and played polo, so that was a big incentive, right? I don't know if I would have probably chose military school if I didn't have polo there, or my horse. So that made it a lot easier. But then I realized that, I was throwing away my life and, at school in Philadelphia. So I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity that I got.
Do you think that you would have able to have achieved everything that you did without the structure of military school?
I don't think so. I think, I probably, I showed up to military school. I could barely read or write, in eighth grade. And I There's a very high probability I would have graduated high school not being able to read or write in Philadelphia.
Wow.
Just because there's no one, forcing me to go to school. It was up to me if I wanted to go and read and write, or learn how to read and write and learn how to count. And if you would have, I knowing myself, I would have not. I would have chose the path of, I'm going to skip class and hang out and not do any of those things.
Yeah. I mean, it just sounds like you were really lucky to be able to be in a position to get all of that catch up done,
Yeah.
because I mean, you were so far behind entering, like you said, eighth grade.
Yeah, I mean, it was catch up. I really, it took me a long time to not feel like I was just playing catch up. And that's just the worst feeling, honestly. Being embarrassed to read in front of the class, or, going up or answering a math problem from the blackboard. Those things were frightening because then everyone looks, you just feel stupid and you think you look stupid, and so getting over all of those things took me a really long time. But through,
And then they go back to your dorms and get yelled at by
yeah,
the classmates.
exactly. So it built me into the young man that I am today, it allowed me to find things in myself that I didn't know even existed.
So one of the characters in the book at that time was your sponsor, who was sort of this complicated character in the book. On one hand, he was giving you this opportunity to be there and the scholarship. But on the other hand, it sounded like he was trying to discourage you from everything that you thought was important.
Yeah.
And in the book, you're reading it and you're like, what's he doing? He's trying to talk him out of this thing that he's so good at. But was it that clear in the time, or was there ever a time that you sort of believed what he was saying, where maybe this was a distraction?
I definitely kind of, second guess my decision making. There's this, older gentleman. I'm, a teenager in high school, and this guy telling me that I need to do this to be successful. The path that I was going down was going to lead me back to where I grew up. And then everyone else was saying, you're doing a great job, keep going. So fortunately, there was a lot of noise. I guess we never wouldn't call it. I guess the things he was saying to me was a lot of noise, and there's a lot of encouragement, and people were, letting me know that I was making the right decision, because those 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid in their right mind really, have the skills or knowledge and ability to decide on, their future, or their future, and what, as far as continue on to, college, or which college should you go to. And then and most teenage young boys and girls are easily, influenced to go, maybe follow what an adult says. So
Especially somebody who's successful and
yeah, someone who's successful, someone who's paying for my tuition,
mentoring you, or trying to mentor you, if not
mentor me.
necessarily in the direction you're trying
Exactly,
to go.
so there was a pressure of, do I disobey this guy who's telling me to do, this one thing, and is he going to pull away his support, or do I just continue to work hard and do what I feel is right? And fortunately, I continue to, kind of follow my gut.
And I just want to mention, I know we listened to it on the video when they talked about your classmate who was giving you a hard time, and you shattered his nose. That was one of the most satisfying moments in the book. I remember sort of cheering for you in that moment.
Yeah.
How did things change for you when you stood up for yourself?
I mean, I think going to any boarding school with all boys, there's always that fight for power, and that hierarchy there, and it certainly solidified me a place at the top, which was nice. But
well, luckily it didn't turn out to be the bully that he was.
Yeah, no, I was the guy.
Absolutely,
I was the guy. I was the bridge between the bullies and the kids who got picked on all the time, versus the kids, as I say in my book, kind of staying out the way. I mentioned that as a saying in Philly. When people ask, how you're doing, what's going on, you respond really, I'm just staying out of the way. And that was that's kind of how I got through Valley Forge, was really, being neutral.
Sorry, I'm just looking and realizing that I want to get through my questions and still have time for everybody else. So one of the most powerful things I took from the book was this story of leadership.
Yes.
We talked about this a little bit earlier, but my absolute favorite part of the book is you're listing all of these things in your life that should have beaten you and broken you down, and were the reasons that you couldn't be a champion. And then there's this shift where all of these negatives become positives, and now you're listing the exact same things, but why they made you into the person you were. Was that a moment of realization, or did that take a long time to come to that conclusion?
Oh, it certainly took a long time to come to that conclusion. Now, I think you're talking about when I say all the things that made me weak, and then all the things, I refer to all the things that, made me the strong person that I am today. But I think when one goes through adversity, right, there's no difference when you're, I'm sitting here picking the calluses on my fingers, and from lifting weights and getting stronger, right? You have these invisible calluses that are created through adversity and challenges, right? As you're struggling to get to the top, you start off, lifting 5-pound weights, and before you know it, or you're lifting 75 pounds or whatever it is that you're doing. But that's just challenging yourself every day, right? You're improving each day and getting stronger. And there's no difference in all the things that at the time that I was, thought made me weak, or I was weak at, or I wasn't strong in those areas in life. But through all the adversity, and just the repetition of doing those things over and over, I eventually start seeing those things as strengths. right? So I would, I'm a very optimistic person. I think even when the worst is happening, there's always a little bit of good in something.
Yeah.
Losing somebody, and I talked to my mom. We lost our brother last year, right before the pandemic, and but I always tell her there's always still there's tons of good things in it, right? There's still he had 3 kids, there are 3 grandchildren, right? So he left you with with his children, so there's bits and pieces of him there. So my outlook is always this positive.
Where's
So
the
I
good
always
in
try to
this?
find the good in something that could be absolutely terrible. And I think that is one of the things that allows me to wake up every day. So always just find that one thing to look forward to, and just believe that it's all going to be okay. And I think that's half of the battle. It's just believing.
Mindset.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then on a similar note, that mindset, you realized that no matter how good you were as a polo player, you were never going to achieve a championship until you led your team.
Yeah.
So how did you come to that? And what was the difference between your junior year when you were trying to do it on your own
Yeah.
and your senior year when you finally figured out it's not about me, it's about the team?
Yeah, that's just like learning how to be a leader and learning how to lead anyone, if it's even in the corporate world. It's like, it's definitely, if I was to do a job review of myself today, it's like learning how to delegate is certainly like one of my weaknesses, right? And it's that mentality, I can do it, I could take it on all by myself. And and it's still something that challenges me today. And what I think about, and when I talk about my time playing with my brothers in high school, feeling like, I had to play defense, I had to play offense. I was running all over the place and I had to save everyone. Where in reality, I was just hurting the team, because I was, there's a saying, you're as strong as your weakest player, and I believe in that. And so I had to learn how to delegate, and lead in a way where it was, dishing out responsibility, um, and holding them accountable, right? And believing that they would be able to deliver. And that's really all it took for us to win. We were young and naive, and just full of adrenaline and wanted to go win.
Just
But
dumb enough to believe you could do
just dumb enough to believe that we
it.
could do it. We get so close and we're like looking at each other. What do we do? Why we lose again? We're right here. We're playing in a championship game. We're one point away from making it to the finals, but we can't ever hold it together. And it was just I think just experience,
Yeah.
really, right? So again, it's another moment, no, another moment of growth and an opportunity to just grow and learn from your mistakes. And I think that's one thing we did incredibly well, was we never repeated the same mistakes. We always would just get a little bit closer. But it was just it's just maturity really that allowed us, maturity and some grit, and again, just believing that we could do it.
Yeah. Well, I want to give a little bit of time for folks at home. I've got one more question. I've got a ton more questions, but I'm going to get one more in before we open it up. So one of Leslie's lessons to you is, if you get the chance, get out and stay out. And it seems like you sort of modified that a little bit to get out and then come back and elevate the community and give
Yeah.
back. How are you giving back to your community, and why is that so important to you?
Yeah, and I think when Leslie says stay out and get out, I think get out is, you know, flexible in terms of certainly want to come back and support the community where you come from, where you came from. And there's always that cliche saying, kind of remember, don't forget where you came from.
Right.
Leslie's a strong believer in that. So am I. And now I serve on the board as a treasurer of Work to Ride. I'm there as often as I can be, to help with coaching or driving kids to polo or whatever it is that Leslie needs. And then just being a physical presence of seeing someone who made it out successfully. Because I can give a lot of lip service from somewhere else across the country, but I don't think that really helps anyone. I think being able to see the person who, you could either be like one day or surpass, and have an example, that that you're able to work with and talk to, and bounce ideas off. I'm a strong believer in that, and you can't. I wouldn't be able to do any of those things if I lived in California, really, or at least not for any of the kids here in Philadelphia that I care about.
Right.
So it's very important for me to come back and be a physical presence that, can help kids continue to believe in their dreams.
Excellent. Thank you. Ashley, are there any?
This morning, questions that
Yes.
Has polo changed much since?
Has polo changed much since I participated in it? Not really. I think in terms of, are there more, African American polo players? There are a couple more, but not that many. The sport is. I think the sport's evolving in terms of, there definitely, it's growing here in the U.S. a little more, but we're still trying to figure out, how to make it accessible to people like myself and kids in the Work to Ride program. Yeah, are there other programs in the U.S. that are similar to Work to Ride? There are, quite a few, but we're the only one. We're the only program that plays polo. Or there are other inner city, urban riding programs.
Okay, I don't see any more questions in the chat, but if there are any participants who would rather voice their questions and unmute themselves, you're all more than welcome to do that now. I'm surprised.
I can keep going if. Okay. So clearly one of the biggest themes in the book was being a Black player and what's predominantly a white game.
Mhm.
And at times you described as feeling like a novelty instead of a person. People
Mhm.
were sort of interested for that reason. Did those feelings change when you won?
Yeah, I think anyone wins, right? Everyone thinks of you differently. I don't. I think even back when times were quite different, probably in the '60s and or '70s, and you start, you're a champion of something. People want to be around that, and there was no difference. We were getting invited to places, play previous or winning a championship, but certainly people were calling more and wanting us to be around, and and I certainly think winning had a lot to do with it. There are still tons of great people and kind people, but we were relevant, I think as people over time got to know us, they know that we weren't just some kids from West Philly who were trouble. We were kids who were trying to work hard and make our way in life
Compete.
and compete.
Yeah. Do you feel like you were able to make an impression on the game?
Yeah, I think certainly just being one of few Black faces in the game, and I think clearly, we stood out because how it looked, but we also were talented, right? We weren't just some scrubs out there pretending to play polo. We were competing, we were winning. And I even think about our trips down to Virginia and other places, and we see there are other little like brown kids who come up to us and are excited to see us, and are starting to play polo because of us. So we definitely had an impact, and we're just hoping that again, regardless of what your race is or where you look or where you come from, if we're able to have a positive impact on you, it's great.
So were you aware that you were creating representation in a place that it didn't really exist before?
No, not really. I mean, that was never our goal. It's, we just love the game and we
Yeah.
love horses, and that's what it was about for us. We through our time and through our travel, we noticed that we were different or we looked different. Um, but we never went out with the intent just of we're gonna be black polo players, and we want to just play because we're black and we want to cause a scene or be disruptive. It was we just loved the game.
Right.
We
Just
loved the
wanted to
horse.
play.
We just wanted to play polo. We didn't care. We played against old folks, young folks, rich, poor. We loved the game. We loved the horses. We didn't care about anything else.
Especially at the end when you were winning.
Oh, absolutely. When you're winning, that makes it all better, right? You feel like you're on top, but we just it worked out that we're also helping the game in a way that no one else has been able to do because they don't look like us. But we're happy that we're having a positive impact. We want to continue to be an ambassador to the game, our ambassadors, and that's just all that comes with it, just being us. So, but really, at the end of the day, it's all about the game and the horses for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have two questions in the chat. The first is, what were some of your family's comments on your polo and military school education?
Yeah. My family loved the fact that I went to military school and I went and busted my butt to learn how to read and write and process things. And then our my exposure to the game of polo just opened up so many doors for myself and my family. So my mom always encouraged us to stay away from home and to not come home, and so we didn't do that. We never came home. We were always at the barn or somewhere riding and playing polo, and it's been life changing for us.
The next question, they included their name, so I'm going to um, include that here. Hi, my name is Reed. I ride and play polo at Work to Ride and have ridden cholo before. What tip do you think can help me while I play polo?
Her name is Reed.
Mhm.
Hi, Reed. What tip? I think you're riding cholo, so you're already set. You should be good to go there. But a good tip really is, listen to Leslie, your coach. I imagine Leslie's coaching you. But try to ride as much as you can. I think ride, if you can ride every day, that's going to make a huge difference in your game. I do ride. I don't ride as much as I would like to, but I'm still active and probably ride maybe like now a couple of times a quarter. But not as much as I would like to.
Yeah, I think I have a good closing question that kind of ties off of the question that was just asked about you writing right now. So now your career is in finance, obviously very different, and you also have this career as an author. How did your polo career shape how you behave in both of those very different sort of worlds?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just a competitor. So, I love competing. I love being the best at whatever I do. If it's working, if it's out trying to raise money, if it's out trying to win a polo game. I think, my competitive nature, translates to both worlds very easily. And just again, working with a team, learning how to delegate in the office, learning how to manage up and manage down, the difference in learning, managing the players around me. I've captained a number of polo teams now. So, You know, that leadership quality is, I'm able to, you know, use it in both worlds. And, you know, I try to really, you know, if I think about, you know, kind of being an athlete, there's no difference in being, you know, a businessman in the professional world. There are a lot of traits that, you know, a lot of skills that, you know, I would use on my day-to-day life in the office that I would use on a polo field.
So is getting your mind right for a polo game the same as getting your mind right to sit down at a computer and write 15 pages?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think just the sitting there and focusing on that one task, you know, you have to be present, both when you're writing, that's all you need to be thinking about. And when I'm sitting down, you know, doing whatever task it is on my computer, you know, if it's analyzing a company or, you know, reviewing, you know, notes from, you know, writing, it's all kind of just kind of being laser focused and trying to accomplish what's in front of you, literally.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if there's no more questions from everybody at home, I have all mine answered. So thank you very much, Kareem. That was awesome. It was great to sit down here and talk with you a
No,
little
thank
bit
you.
and learn more about you and your story and your book.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. And, you know, people can go online and purchase the book. It's available on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, Target. You can just Google Crossing the Line and pick up a copy.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.